Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman, and today we're going to be talking about the Roger Hinds Nomad. For those of you who don't know who Roger Hinds is, welcome back to the surfing world. Maybe you've taken the last 40 or 50 years off, but Roger is a master of his craft of building boards completely by himself. Like, he relies on no one else other than himself, so that the perfection is totally in his control, and you can't like pass the buck on anybody. So one of Roger's taglines is built by one pair of hands. And so that basically his hands are in charge of shaping the board, glassing the board, all the color work, the sanding, the polishing, the tints, the sprays, everything. So with all of Roger's boards, every one of his boards is hand shaped, and there's a lot of confusion about what is a hand shape. So basically he's getting a blank, and a lot of the blanks are his blanks, so they're cut to his specs, but they're not going through a CNC shaping machine. Every one of his boards is hand shaped from the blank. Hand shaping is not hand finishing. That's when it goes through the CNC and then it's hand finished. Hand shaping is when you just basically take the raw blank and shape the board out of the raw blank. So every board of Roger's is hand shaped, and then he does, like we said, all the color work, all of the glass work, all of the sanding, the polishing, everything on the board. So this board that we're talking about right here is called the Nomad, and at Real we're going to be stocking this board 6, 8 and smaller. It's also available in larger sizes, but specifically with the 6, 8 and smaller, you can ride the board basically with any fin setup you want, and the math on the fin, the math and the performance on the fin location in the board works for any fin setup. Once you go above 6, 8, then you have to start choosing, like, I want this as a quad or thruster, or I want it as a twin fin. But 6, 8 and below, you can basically ride it any way you want. You could ride it quad, you could ride it thruster, and you could also ride it twin fin with a set of like high performance, like more vertical style twin fins like these. And amazingly enough, not only does Roger make every part of this board himself, but he also equips all of his boards with custom fins from NVS Fin Company. And this is a Roger Hinds template. The thruster, the quad, and the twin fin are all Roger's designs and made by NVS. Their G10, a really high quality fin, high quality, high performance, high strength. And that G10 is stronger, so they're the fin thinner, that makes it faster through the water. Gives great flex, great performance, and you know, having your board come with a really good set of fins is really going to help you with the performance of the board. So, all right, let's take a look at the dims on this board. This is the one that I was riding, and it is 6'8" by 21.5" by 2 7/8. If you want to tech out and you want to know the nose and the tail, it's 15 3/4 for the nose, a foot back, and 16 1/4 on the tail, a foot forward from the tail. There is no volume on Roger's boards because they're 100% hand shaped, so it's not going through the CNC machine and on the design program where you could calculate volume. So it's just straight numbers and feel. Everything on this board, as far as the shape, is really subtle. I would say the only thing that really stands out on the shape is how thin the board is. If you look at the bottom shape, everything on the bottom is really subtle, like just flats and V's and really subtle double concave, but nothing like really jumping out on it. And you look at 2 7/8 for the thickness, and like you hold onto this board and you're like, okay, so where is the 2 7/8? Because the rail is really thin, the rail forward is real thin, and even like right here, normally, like, you know, being a bigger guy and riding boards like 2 7/8, like everything starts to feel really chunky, and yeah, it gets you into the wave really good, but it just feels like a big boat when you're riding it. This thing just really foiled out, and that was when Roger talks about the Nomad. That's like one of the things he points out. It's got a wider planing platform for the glide and the ease of getting waves, and just like that smaller wave speed and push from the board, but he really thins them out to keep the board agile and just really easy to maneuver. and really easy to lock in on a rail when you're going at those higher speeds. So I would say just like that, like thinner profile of the board is really what stood out to me, like kind of right out of the box. And then also in the water, you could definitely feel it. Like the board's not, the board's not riding you, you're still able to ride the board. The Nomad is basically just an all-around, I would call this an all-around, one and done, do everything, travel kind of board that is tuned for small to medium waves. So it's not necessarily a bigger wave board, although you could ride it in overhead surf. Like where this thing really seemed to perform the best is on the smaller side, like your gravel surf up to about your head high or a little bit overhead is where this thing seemed to work the best. So if you were going someplace, any place in California, you could ride this thing in like any of the reef breaks or point breaks, or if you're going on a trip to the Maldives or some like kind of mid-range Puerto Rico stuff, any of those breaks, like this board would work really well. What I liked about this board specifically was how easy it was to paddle, like how fast this thing was to paddle, especially coming off of bigger boards back onto something a little bit like kind of more mid-size. And also the wave catching ability was just nuts on this thing. It basically, you could literally like just cock the thing and let it go and it launches into a wave. And if you're paddling, you don't even really have to paddle that hard to catch waves on this. The speed was also really good. Like front side and back side, the speed is definitely there. My first session was with the quad setup, and really like this setup. And I would say out of all the setups, I like the quad and the twin the best. The thruster, I'm still playing around with the thruster, although I think I'd probably want to put a little bit bigger fins in it than what it came with for my body size. But the quad I really liked, and the twin fin I really liked, and I didn't even really have a problem with it spinning out, even with just with those like more vertical twin fins in these boxes. So that means obviously, right, the math and the design is working with where the boxes are. But the twin fin, obviously the fastest and the most slippery through the water as far as like no friction. And that's gonna be better on, especially like with the width of this board, that's gonna be better on flatter face waves. Like you're not gonna take that twin fin because it's a twin fin and ride it in the waves that you're riding like a Maurice Cole reverse V twin fin in it. This twin fin would be more for like flatter face mush and just trying to get the most out of the board in small wave conditions. The quad, the day that I surfed this thing, or the first day I surfed it with the quad, it was like a punchier beach break wedge style wave, like where you're like the wave has curve in every direction and it's got a lot of thickness to it. And the quad was really nice for that. And also rode the thruster in kind of like some A-framing pier style waves. And that was good, although I did like the quad better than the thruster in this board. I don't know if it's the width of the tail or if the fact that I just need to size up one more size on the fins, but it worked. I just like the quad and the twin fin better on it. As far as overall performance, like really easy to surf well. Like just like you get on it, just feels familiar. Like right when you get on it, definitely fast down the line as far as like making sections and like getting into waves early and getting up and going. I like the versatility of it as well. Like just kind of having one board and just going to the beach or going on a trip and knowing that the board's going to work. And I'll tell you, like, owning one of Roger's boards, it's just special, like that he made this thing for me and sent it to me, because we only get 4 of his boards a month. That's about the capacity that he can make, doing everything himself. And you know that every single one of these things he goes over with a fine-tooth comb, and it's going to be perfect. So yeah, really fun board. It's the Nomad, and we'll be stocking this 6/8 and smaller. You can also order it larger than that. Above that, you are going to have to decide kind of where you want to point the fin setup. 6/8 and smaller, you can ride it with any fin setup, which is once you get everything dialed in is nice, for kind of tuning the board for the waves. If you're going to a place and you're like, hey, I know the waves are going to be in this range the whole time I'm going to be there, or if you live in a place where the waves are basically the same all the time, this is a board you can get a lot of different uses out of it and have a really good time on it. It is the Roger Hinds Nomad. If you have any questions on this board or anything else from Roger Hinds, you can always give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.